All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you right there, just like me right here. So I was perusing the Chicago website, because that's what I do, and lo and behold, they have a song that I hadn't heard before by Robert Lamm and Keith Howland. It hasn't officially been dubbed a new Chicago track. It's called Dancing to the Light, and when I saw the title, I was thinking to myself, the song is immediately going to be met with an identity crisis, because you've got Phil Collins from the 90s, one of his last great radio moments, Dancing to the Light, Phil doing his best dancing on the album cover. Needless to say, though, this is a really good track. I want to say that. But reading the bio about the song was very interesting and validates pretty much everything I talk about on this channel when I get up on the soapbox. So again, original music from Robert Lamm and Keith Howland. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Keith and I got together to write a couple of songs for the next Chicago album. In the late 90s and early 2000s. This was a problem. After the Night and Day and Chicago 25 albums, there was at least a half dozen best of, greatest repackaged albums. In other words, management and the record label just decided to milk the catalog. And this is a band that wants to go forward. They wanted to create new music. But there was obviously little interest from radio or any major record company for new Chicago music. Now, Don Henley has said this is kind of like ageism. I mean, I think there's more and more evidence to suggest that, but my theory has always been is that the music industry basically collapsed in the 1990s and did a pivot away from things that are melodic and familiar and comfortable and sometimes a little bit more upbeat and optimistic. This track obviously going to suffer an identity crisis with the Phil Collins tune, but definitely has, an upbeat kind of happy sound to it. If you go listen to it, you're going to say, okay. And Keith Howland, who is just a great guitarist, really adds quite a bit to the track. When you've got Keith and you've got Robert, I mean, just a great combo, great tandem. I'm sure they just got together and figured the band would add their parts to the music. And by the way, from a songwriting standpoint, this is a really good song for Robert Lamm. He had gone, a few years in a slump, basically, when it comes to songwriting. But this one here, I really like this track. So anyway, fortunately, we could still perform convincingly, and with commitment, our management was working very hard to keep our profile current. So in other words, just keeping the band. This is the big struggle for a band like Chicago or Journey, although not so much for Journey, but other bands, Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, keeping their name out there. Something needs to happen featuring this band and their music, and people go, oh yeah, Chicago, yeah, I remember those guys. To a certain degree, the band members did not agree on the viability of recording new music. Even with the advent of indie record companies, there was a lack of understanding that this required self-financing. Keith and I were of the mind that we should not stop making music, whatever the cost. And this is the point of the lyric, Robert Lamm. So Robert Lamm, a guy who has gotten on soapboxes in the past, whether it's about politics or the industry. Chicago is kind of a mixed bag. They're a very corporate band, but at times throughout their career, they've had moments of being very independent. If they were truly super corporate, think about it. When Cetera said goodbye after they had made an offer, if they were really a corporate rock band at that point, they would say, you know what? Our most important thing moving forward is success, and we need Peter to be successful no matter how much we compromise our musical integrity. Now, for the most part, they continued to compromise their musical integrity for the rest of the 1980s into the early 90s, relying on Diane Warren as their songwriter of choice. And Diane was pretty much writing for everybody at that point. But when you've got Look Away and the three singles that were released from 19 all hit the top 10. They were all Diane Warren tracks. And then they tried again on 21, and that didn't go anywhere, Chasing the Wind, and that's because, again, that album was horribly mixed, and they should have kept the original mixes of it. And at that point, it was 1991, and the music industry was starting to pivot. They were making the change, and it took a full year, 2 years after that. So Warner probably saw the writing on the wall and said, we could promote this and maybe we could get a couple of hits out of it, but we're not going to milk it like we did with Chicago 19, Chicago 18, and especially the amazing Chicago 17. The point is, if the band really wanted to be a sellout, they would have said, yeah, Peter has to stay and we'll just do everything Peter's way. These guys were all alpha male. They were all very strong-willed. Robert, I think, wanted to write more songs. His songwriting talents, though, seemed to be in a certain time with the band from its inception to about maybe 1977, 78. And then he really struggled after that. This song, by the way, shows almost like a comeback for Robert Lamm and his songwriting style. I really like this track, and again, you can stream it on the Chicago website. I think that's the only place you can get it, unless you can download it somehow from some other site. But Keith Howland, just an amazing guitar player, been with the band, 25 years now? Something like that. Just an amazing guitarist and very underrated. I did do a video about Keith a while ago. He is certainly underappreciated and needs more recognition. But these guys, especially the guys that joined the group later, like Lou Pardini and Keith Howland, they don't get the kind of recognition that the original old-timers got. So they should be credited because they've kept this band alive, and they are great live performers, too. I've seen Keith Howland play with Chicago live, and he just tears it up. And he's got lots of enthusiasm on stage. And again, one of my favorite guys who are still in the group. Even, some of the old timers who've come and gone, I prefer Keith Howland over a lot of those players. People argue Chris Pinnock was an amazing guitarist, and he was a really good guitar player. Dwayne Bailey, Dwayne Bailey obviously was a great guitarist as well, and the late great Terry Kath. Nobody can really touch him, but I think Keith Howland finally kind of settled things down. You know what I mean? He was like the guy who came in, wasn't having any crazy relationships with any of the band members' offspring. We'll say that. He was just in there, plugging away, doing his job, being the great guitarist that he is. So, in any event, Dance Into the Light, it's a good time for a song like this. We all kind of need to dance into the light. And even if you're Phil Collins, you got to dance into the light. So that's my video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell if you want notifications. And patrons, I need patrons. So if you can sign up for $1 a month, that's the place to go, to Patreon for $1 a month. And it helps support the channel because, again, this is an ebb and a flow as far as success for this channel. But I appreciate everybody who is still with me after all this time, and for all those new subscribers as well. See you soon.